Welcome to the Cheer Athlete. Let's talk about how to manage back pain and why movement patterns are important than just focusing on muscles. Now, this will go for anything in cheer. We want to focus on those movement patterns, but we're going to be specific a little bit towards low back pain. If you're a cheerleader, if you a cheer parent or a cheer coach, this podcast is for you. Thank you for joining me today. And we're going to really talk about what movement patterns are, what movement patterns are important for cheerleaders, and how we can, instead of just targeting muscles, like saying we're going to strengthen the core, because most people know if you have got back pain, you want to strengthen your core. Most people know cheerleaders need to strengthen the core, but the core is just one body part that doesn't act in isolation. So we need to think about how are we moving with that. We're going to have some actionable tips for cheer athletes and some insight into how training can reduce pain and also boost performance. So even if you don't have back pain, these movement patterns and looking at movement patterns to help get you stronger for your cheer stunts is going to be helpful. So this past week, I've been focusing on social media and on YouTube. I posted a video about how to manage back pain and my top 4 exercises that are important as you have acute pain, and that I think are also important for getting some core stability and getting some movement patterns. They If you haven't checked them out, go check them out for sure. I had a client, it was a couple of years ago now. She came in, she was a base and was having some right-sided low back pain. I think she was a main base and also did side basing. So she kind of alternated, but a lot of compression in like overextending her lower back. Through the course of our treatment, we worked on teaching her how to, correct that movement, find a position while she's in the stunt that doesn't create that compression through her back, but really being able to adjust her core, adjust where her ribs were, adjust her pelvis, and learn how to move through motions that didn't hurt. We didn't take out altogether. Like I do coach in these videos on Instagram and in my prior video, I do talk about learning how to move and creating that intra-abdominal pressure with breathing and finding those centered positions. I do think they're important to learn how to do, but it's not the end all be all. We need to be able to move in a variety of positions. And sometimes when you're basing, you're going to be under a stunt and your back is going to arch and you're going to have to be twisted a little. But if you can just adjust a little bit and find that little position that doesn't throw the stunt off, but it allows you to feel more stable and have less pain, then that's great. And then when you're out of stunt, then you work on your mobility to create that nice motion and incorporate that into your exercise routine. Things like jumps and stunts and tumbling all rely on full body movement and coordination. When we're jumping, if we're doing a toe touch, our legs are coming up and our bottom is tucking under, and we want to keep our ribs up, but not overextend our back. So we have to learn how to create that movement pattern and working most motions or movements to help do that while strengthening the core. Instead of just doing leg lifts, working whole body movements like that will be more beneficial and carrying over. And same goes for stunting and tumbling. So why does training movement patterns matter? When we just isolate, like we talked about with jumps, if you're just lifting one leg and working on a straight leg raise or standing kick, you're only working on like that front of the leg, the hip flexor. But it doesn't always it won't carry over necessarily to strengthening in through the core, which you need to be upright, or your hips. It doesn't create that nice movement pattern. So we need to be able to train hip hinge, a squat, a lunge, pushing, pulling, rotation, carrying. We need to be able to isolate the ribs. They need to be able to lift up and come down, like zipping up a zipper, pulling down. We need to be able to extend our lower back and flex our lower back. We need to be able to side bend and twist and rotate and all that stuff, depending on what we're doing. And they all have to work at just the muscles have to work at just the right timing and speed to really make that motion be better. Um, things like if you're a flyer up in a pulling a hill stretch, like the leg is going to be flexed and turned out and or pulled up right in front of you. So yes, you need that hamstring stretch and that flexibility, but at the same time, you need stability through the pelvis and the standing on the one leg. So, and you need the strength of your leg that's lifting to be able to do that. And so that movement pattern of lifting the leg is important in standing and making sure that we can maintain where we need to be and not being falling over. So lying down, doing a leg raise, while can be a good core exercise, doing like two-legged leg raises may not actually translate into what we're doing standing and in life. And so creating some different movements that we eventually add some resistance to can make a big difference in, going from the ground up into standing. If same thing on the base, like we talked about with my client before, that compression through the back, like just shifting a little bit and being able to get into her hip and learning where a more comfortable position was helped her to not only to have less pain while she was stunting, but to be able to be stronger and hold her stunts up better and to coordinate that movement. If we want to talk about low back pain in cheerleading, I think it's very common, and I've mentioned this before. I think we tend to brush it off because we don't want to lose our spot. But it's important for you to talk to mention this in the healthy cheerleading, the health and wellness for cheerleading group, that it's important. Like your athletes need to come tell you, hey, my back's hurting and it's been hurting for a while. If it's and you don't have to if you have pain, you don't always have to sit out. But if you're having something that's getting worse and worse and it doesn't feel good, then you should sit out of what you're doing and find ways to move better. So finding ways like, okay, it hurts when I'm holding overhead and I'm arching my back, but maybe it doesn't hurt as much if I'm flexing forward a little bit and hinging from my hips a little bit. And training that on the ground, like without somebody in your hands, is going to be very important. I think, overuse and these poor mechanics that we just put ourselves into can definitely feed into some lower back pain. Not being able to isolate and move in and out of a movement, like not be, the core stability comes in from not being able to really move into a stacked position and out of a stacked position and shifting that through the day. And we don't spend a lot of time in recovery. After practice is the best time to do some stretching and lengthening the muscles and kind of getting things to move better a little bit. So we need to start to incorporate that so we have better recovery. When we're in pain, we're going to tend to shift away from it. If you're getting compression on the right lower back and you kind of lean into that side more, if you've ever had pain there, it's not fun. So we tend to compensate and either shift away, or sometimes we shift towards, and sometimes we rotate and twist. My own back bothered me this past summer after I had done some deadlifting and other workout in there. And I really hadn't gone that heavier than I had done in the past, but it was enough and my body wasn't ready. And it really ended up being, I was compensating, my hip was not strong enough and it compensated in through my back and my obliques. And that just kind of went into a cramp and a spasm. So I needed to get some good mobility through my hip in doing, taking my body through the motions that it needed. And then creating some functional standing rotation exercises to help get the stability back in through the hips, the core, and getting things just moving better in general. Like when your hip moves better, then your back can move better, your upper back will move better, and your neck and your shoulders and your knees, etc. So everything has to kind of flow and move. And it's all in a big coordinated movement. And sometimes, yes, sometimes breaking that down and getting into that coordinated, isolated movement is very helpful. Then we have to take that into a functional position and train in that functional position. When we look at how to manage low back pain, in the clinic, and this is easy enough to do if somebody's in at home, or if you're a cheerleader listening to this, check and see what your movement patterns are like. Can you tuck your toes? Can you lean backwards? Can you twist and what does that feel like? Can you stand on one leg? Can you squat? All of those are going to affect what happens at the back. We can break that down and if you come into the clinic, we'll look and see like where is that, maybe where's a sticky point on that, but just checking to see where you're at on those can help. Now, if you aren't moving, if you can't move at all, then we're not going to go focus on straight up strength training. We're going to work on creating that mobility and learning how to move in and out of position so it doesn't hurt, and then add some load to it as you're comfortable. Again, doesn't mean that we don't do lifting and don't do strength training altogether. We have to just work with you what feels okay and what feels safe, because something might be structurally wrong, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's pain associated with that. And doesn't mean that you necessarily can't do that motion. It just means you have to listen to your body, start to learn what it feels like, and start to be able to create that movement variability that you're able to move through full ranges of motion and find what feels good. A lot of, so in getting, as you start to improve, the videos that I've been doing in this week on social media is all baseline exercises. They're breathing mechanics. And really, I don't, people get frustrated because I do tell them, we got to start with these breathing exercises and learn how to do them correctly. And take a little time on them, because I think it's important to learn, what does it feel like to actually take a diaphragmatic breath and feel your abdominals go in and out, and for your rib cage to expand. But then we take it into movement, and we're putting our back into extension and learning, what does that feel like? Can you actually breathe in and out in the different positions? Do you breathe in and out, or are you just bracing and gripping when you change position? And the key is being able to breathe in whatever capacity throughout that motion. Like, I will cue you as an exercise to work on exhaling as you arch your back and inhaling as you round your back in a cat cow. But you need to actually be able to do both of those. So then, and being able to, the key is not holding your breath as you're doing that. So those are my baseline. If things are hurting, like starting from there, finding what's comfortable there and spending more time in that comfortable position can be very helpful. As you're progressing out of that really acute phase, things like hip hinges and single leg work, bridges. I like bridges. I think you can do a single leg bridge where you're getting some rotation at the same time. Um, Doing some rotational patterns, that maybe you're doing a lunge with rotation. That's going to start to build that mobility and in your comfort zone to help train the patterns that we need. And so rotation works our obliques a lot. If we do standing rotational exercises, that maybe you're picking something up from the ground and putting it up overhead, or or vice versa, overhead and down, or we're going from one side to the other. Those are going to be more functional and pattern-based rotational exercises that are going to definitely carry over more into a standing, stunting, tumbling, and train the obliques in that movement pattern way than just coming and doing a straight up crunch. Um, and like I talk about all the time, making sure we have a good warm up and teach our kids how to warm up and cool down. Warm up that we're moving through those full range of motion, we're taking our body through what we're going to be able to do. That's when the time comes to really flex and extend spine, make it side bend through all different, get your hips rotating and all different kinds of exercises. And there's so many, and there's no one right exercise. The best right exercise is the one that you do and that feels good and that you feel like, it kind of train both sides. And can you do it evenly? And does it feel the same way evenly? If so, awesome. Keep going. If not, pull back and find what does work well. And cool downs, making sure that we, include a cool down at the end of practice. It doesn't have to be a half an hour. Give yourself 5 minutes to run through a quick stretch, let the body kind of recover and quiet down. Make sure we're encouraging good hydration when we're out of practice so that we can, keep the body moving functionally, make sure we're, encouraging sleep and rest. And some people aren't going to need as much rest as others, but our body does do better when we are rested. And it also does better when we are eating the right foods. So all of that will feed into how your body is feeling and moving, and help the healing process also. Um, as you are, as you're going through changing how, looking at movement patterns and how that's affecting your back, or how you're going to incorporate that into your routines and your exercise routines, try to think about the training is like building stepping stones, and you're going through full movements, kind of like waves that you're moving. I like, if you're, I don't know if you can see this on my back screen, but you're waving your arm side to side, that would take it from one motion to the other side, and going from the bottom up, flex and extend, and see what those movement patterns feel like, rather than just looking at, I'm going to move my foot up and down, I'm going to push on the gas pedal all the time. The gas pedal needs a straight leg and a hip extension. So if we want kids to point their toes when they're jumping, teaching, yes, point the toes, but then push your knee out straight also, roll your hip out, tuck your bottom under. Those all go together, and then we need to be able to go out of that, because to get to that point where we have the strength to do that, we need to be able to move out of that motion as well. I'm in the process of putting together a free ebook for back pain and managing back pain. There's also other guides on my website, so go check them out for flyers, different exercises that will look at movement patterns. I will also get something out there eventually for bases and for tumblers. I offer for movement assessments. If you want to send me a video and look and see where are your limitations on this and what do you need to work on, and does it hurt, and do you need some guidance on that? If you are having pain, I'm probably going to refer you to a physical therapist in your area. But if it's something, like if you want to do some strength and conditioning work with me, we look at that movement assessment. I have lots of different programs that we can, get you moving the best that you want to do. There's free resources in there. There's a movement screen video that you can access. So go check those out. If this is helpful and you found this helpful, please share it to fellow cheer coaches and parents who want to be able to help their athletes stay strong and move better and feel better and continue on with cheer in a healthy way. Upcoming topics, I'd love to know what would you like to hear. So feel free to either message me on social media. My links are in the show notes below, or send me an email. Happy to, I'd love to entertain. If I can get someone on the show that you're interested, I would love to have them. I'm going to keep talking on injuries, probably stay on the back for a little while, because I think that's a big area. Once we strengthen, we start to learn how to move through our central. We teach our brain how to react to what our body and our core is doing. It's going to carry over more into arms and legs and shoulders and all that stuff. And they're the powerhouse muscles. So we'll probably stay with this for a little while. Remember, key takeaway: managing your low back pain, it's retraining movement patterns. It's allowing yourself to move, working on your breathing so that you know that you're not holding your breath, and that you can breathe in all kinds of different positions without just locking down. So we do talk, perfection before progression, but there is going to be that time that doesn't have to be 100% spot on perfect. We want to make sure that you're moving well and it feels well, that you are able to do the motions that you need to do, like tucking your bottom under to lift your legs up at the same time, and that you're able to know what it feels like to lift your chest versus drop your chest, and that you can get through your hip, you can get through movement patterns like touching your toes or reaching backwards or twisting. All of those, but as you progress, you're going to perfect also along the way. So they go hand in hand. And the key is, don't be afraid to move. Movement is good. And the more you can learn to tune into what your body is telling you, what it feels like, and listen to it, the better you're going to be on a whole. If this episode spoke to you and you liked it, please leave a comment below, and also subscribe to the podcast, and leave a review, because that will help me to get better. I'm always learning, and I think it's important for cheerleaders to continue to learn how to move, but I think it's important that I do too. So I'd love your feedback, and please leave me a review. That'd be awesome. thanks for listening to me this week. I really appreciate you being here. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe it out. Take life one step at a time. You can do anything you put your mind to. Don't be afraid to explore. And as my friend Drew Kelleher said, you're responsible for your own vibes. So go get the day.